Hello everybody and welcome back to the A-Side. I am your host, Riley, and Green Day are a top 10 band of all time for me. And they're back with their brand new album, Saviors. When I say I love Green Day, I mean I love Green Day. American Idiot is a monolithic album for me that's been a foundational cornerstone of my musical taste pretty much ever since. But when it comes to this new record, Saviors, a lot of people really seem to be enjoying it. And I'm not so sure I agree. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you want. And before you come out here with your comments, I haven't seen Brad's video, haven't seen his reaction. The Needle Drop review dropped today. Haven't seen it. I've seen what John has said about it on Instagram, ARTV, but I have not watched his review. I have not watched any reviews of this album yet. So, just so you're throwing that out there. Green Day are the most famous and successful punk band of all time. And before you go to the comments with, actually, Green Day aren't real punk. The best punk band of all time are the Shitcocks because their music showed a real rebellion against the right-wing authoritarian administration of President Pisspants in Liechtenstein in the 80s. Stop. It's not what I'm trying to argue. Go take it to a Spectrum Pulse video, right? No shade to Mark. He knows what he's talking about way more than I do. The Shitcocks can't fill Fenway Park with thousands of fans from every gender, race, and age screaming their lyrics back at them. Green Day can. This band's back catalog is filled with iconic songs and legendary singles. Their run of albums from Kerplunk to American Idiot is simply incredible. You think a band of this status and with this history would know when their album isn't up to stuff? Well, Green Day does. I know that they know this album is underwhelming. And I know this for two reasons. Firstly, they released it in January. They put it out as early as possible so they wouldn't have any competition from other major artists. Neck Deep dropped on the same day, of course. And that album was really solid. But Neck Deep, as much as I love Neck Deep, they're not A-list. They're not really gonna... People are gonna check out a new Green Day record as soon as possible, regardless if Neck Deep dropped or not. That's not what I mean by, A-list, but no shade to Neck Deep. Good album. I'll talk about it eventually. And secondly, on the Saviors tour, the tour to support the new album, named after the new album, is being advertised as a tour of them playing Dookie and American Idiot in full. They had so little faith in their new album that they had to play their two beloved classics to draw people into its supporting tour. That sounds like you have no faith in your new record, and sounds like you knew it wasn't up to snuff before you put it out. On a side note, though, if you actually get a chance to get these tickets for this tour, you should get them. I saw Green Day in 2021 for the Hella Mega Tour, and they were absolutely incredible. Still one of the best live bands I've ever seen. I think the 1975 just notched them out barely. And with them playing American Idiot in full, it's probably going to be incredible. Get those tickets if you can. I wish I could. The problem with Saviors is the same as 90% of modern Green Day albums, which I'm counting as everything after American Idiot. The band just sounds washed. They sound old and tired. There's no passion, energy, or fire behind the music, so it just ends up being boring and kind of sad. I think the problem here is rather worse, though, than on some other records. See, Saviors is a return to form for Green Day after their previous album, Father of All Motherfuckers. And here's why I think my thoughts on this record kind of divulge from so many others. Because I think Father of All is the best Green Day album since American Idiot. I have a whole review of Father of All actually written from earlier in 2023 that I will put out eventually. I think, like I said, it's the best album since American Idiot. It's the first album since then to have any energy or fire behind it. And with the exception of Warning in 1999, Green Day have more or less been doing the same sound since the late 80s, the same kind of sound palette, right? Of course, it's got bigger and smaller, and the writing has been different, but it's been pretty faithful to, rock guitars, bass, and drum. Your main punk sound is just gotten bigger and smaller, a little angrier, but Warning was really a rehaul of their sound entirety. And Father of All sees the band experiment again, playing around with garage rock and glam rock. And you can tell the guys were really passionate about the sound and were really excited to do it. There are a lot of bands that experiment and change up their sound that aren't passionate about it, and it's obvious they're just trying to, like, follow trends. Take a look at, like, Linkin Park, One More Light. As much as I love Linkin Park, you can tell they do not care. No matter how much Mike Shinoda can go on interviews and go on the Fine Brothers and be like, we were just excited to make this pop sound. It'd be boring if we did the same thing over and over again. And then you listen to the record and he's like, well, I'm sorry for now. Right? Father of All doesn't see that. You see the band excited and with fire. You've got Billy doing new stuff. I mean, I woke up with a message of love. Right? Father of All sees a fire in Green Day we haven't seen since 2004. I think the same can be seen, but a bit of a lesser extent, in Dose, which I think is actually the best of the Infamous trilogy. They incorporate some sounds of garage rock there too. But from the whole, like, trilogy thing, they already sound tired, so it doesn't work as much. And sure, the experimentation results in two of Green Day's worst songs, Nightlife and Fuck Time. It also gives us some hidden gems, like Stop When the Red Lights Flash, Lazy Bones, and Stray Hearts. It really stands out compared to the mostly gutless Uno, Nuclear Family, notwithstanding that song is incredible, and the absolute nothingness that is Trey. Despite my ardent defense of Father of All Motherfuckers, everyone else absolutely hated it. Leading Green Day to course correct on Saviors and go back to the status quo. Now not only does the band once again sound washed, old, and tired, but utterly defeated as well. They had a passion project they were excited about, and the world shot it down. Now, leading the band to create something with no energy or fire in an attempt to please. And it's not that I don't want Green Day to make music in their punk sound. It's just that they obviously don't want to anymore. I don't want the band to make music this worn out sounding because they have no passion for the style after 30 years. Comparing Billy's, honestly, as well as the rest of the band's enthusiasm and fire on a song like Sugar Youth or Father of All, or the absolute adrenaline injection that is stab you in the heart, to something from the new record like Fancy Sauce or Look Ma No Brains. It's night and day. As you can see, the band's passion just is not there. And I think with the passion, the memorability goes too. Savior just sees the band as old and sad. It almost reminds me of The Rise of Skywalker. The Last Jedi is a movie that, whether you liked or not, was very bold and subversive for the Star Wars universe, and it pissed a lot of people off. But it was doing something new, and it had a lot of these deep, rich themes that we had never seen Star Wars kind of tackle before. But the hate for this movie caused Lucasfilms to over-course correct and make something so safe and so bland, it barely felt like a film at all. In this case, Father of All is The Last Jedi, and Saviors is The Rise of Skywalker. Fans would rather have something stale and tired that they know instead of something new and different. It's no coincidence that I think The Last Jedi is easily the best film in the sequel trilogy. It's definitely got its flaws, and as a Star Wars film, it doesn't always necessarily work, but as a film, I think it's really good. But that's a discussion for another day. Let's not get into that right now. Comments. The worst part is the people who like Saviors are going to turn on it in 3 to 4 years. I saw the same thing happen with 2016's Revolution Radio. People loved that record when it came out. But in hindsight, the praise was mostly because it was a new Green Day album that wasn't a rock opera or part of the trilogy. Nowadays, removed from the context of its release, I see almost exclusively negative things about that album. I think it's okay at best. Solid songwriting, stuff like Still Breathing, Bang Bang. Songwriting's good, but once again, Green Day just sound tired and lifeless and old on it. And I fear people only like Saviors because it's a familiar Green Day sound after the polarizing experiments found in Father of All. And I think after a few years, a lot of people are going to decide this album is mid. I think part of the problem lies in the fact that Green Day just needs to get away from making political music. I feel like anything of substance Billy Joe had to say was said on American Idiot, and it's become continuously rehashed in a weak, punchless way with a less interesting execution and less feeling. I just become so tired. Vague messages of being angry about America and living in America just don't hit the same way they do, and they don't hit with any substance or originality. It's like it's just been totally milked for the last 20 years. The same message. And perhaps that's another reason why Dose and Father of All kind of stick out as the most solid work for me. They're not super political records. And it's not the politics that bothers me. I can respect... I'm the kind of person who can respect anybody's political views and can respect a song if it's done well, whether it's liberal, conservative, moderate, even communist, right? If you can make the music well, and of course to a degree, right? There comes a point where it stops being political. I don't think racism is political. Um, what I'm trying to say is your message, even if I disagree with your message, most of the time it can turn out good. And if I agree with your message, it can turn out bad. You know what I mean? It's all about execution and passion. And after saying the same thing for 20 years, you've run out of passion and run out of new execution. So it's not the politics itself I'm criticizing, rather the fact that they just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it's become stale and boring. And they really don't have as much energy or fire or anything interesting or new to say. Look no further than Coma City with its razor-thin political commentary. It tries to hit so many different issues, but fails to make a point or say anything of note about any of them. The song is razor thin musically too, feeling almost like a blueprint instruction on how to make something that sounds vaguely like a band similar to Green Day, or like a Green Day type beat you'd find on, like, I don't know, Fiverr. If you want a truly bad political song, though, just look at Living in the 20s, which reads like a year in review segment from a high school textbook with overused buzzwords after overused buzzwords. Speaking of buzz, the lyric, "I've got a buzz like a murder hornet," is like laughably bad. So if that tells you what kind of song this is, it's not a good one. And the rest of the big moments on this record kind of don't fare much better. Corvette Summer sounds like bullshit, overly masculine, testosterone-infused 80s cock rock that punk bands like Green Day were supposed to be the antithesis of, and the cowbell is like the piss-flavored icing on top of the shit-flavored cake that is this song. That's really gross. Why did I write that? One-Eyed Bastard has a guitar riff that is so close to The American Dream Is Killing Me that it makes me question why both have to exist on the same record. The chorus is among the worst Green Day have ever written, much like I said about Baby Keem's verse on Praise God way back when I reviewed Donda in 2021. Bada bing, bada boom do not qualify as lyrics, especially when it's supposed to be your big call to action, barn-burning chorus. The melodies on Susie Chapstick reek horribly of Heard Before, feeling one for one with the chorus of Dilemma by Nelly and Kelly Rowland. And no sweet power pop veneer will ever allow me to ignore it, especially after that song reached meme level status in 2016. Bobby Socks is where Green Day really show how old they are. The repeated chorus of "Do you wanna be my girlfriend?" feels like, how do you do, fellow kids? You know what that mean? Sure, the Ramones did it in the 70s. You know, "Hey, little girl, you wanna be my girlfriend," right? But that was nearly 50 years ago from a band that was young at the time. We don't need it now from a bunch of guys in their 50s. I've seen people compare this track to Weezer, and I see it. I see the lyricism, and I see the power pop kind of tempo and guitars and sound, but Billie Joe Armstrong does not pull off the clunky, awkward nerd like Rivers Cuomo can. It just doesn't feel right, and it doesn't work the same way it does when Rivers does it. "Look Ma No Brains" is being used in Taco Bell ads, which is fitting because it's indicative of the bland corporate nothingness this song is. It sounds like a stock rock song made specifically for fast food and Applebee's ads. If the people who are freaking out, like from Gilman Street, about Green Day signing on a major label and making Dookie could hear this, then they would riot. And I love Taco Bell. I actually had Taco Bell for lunch today. Weird side note. But Green Day making a song that fits so well in a fast food commercial is just so sad at how bland and lifeless this band has become over the last 30 to 40 years. 1981 has the lyrical trope of remember a specific year and how it was and how the music was. Remember? I hate these super referential remember when songs so much. 1985 by Bowling for Soup / SR71 is another good example. Worst part is it's not even a particularly good at referencing the 80s. Like cable TV? Pretty sure that was still in wide use until like the early 2010s. And a lot of people still have it. The most we get is like vague references to the Soviet Union. Outside of that underwritten chorus, of course, "I'm gonna bang your head like 1981. Like, they aren't gonna let you forget what year they're talking about. there is some kind of redeemable stuff here. The political commentary on the American Dream is Killing Me is rather gaunt, especially when compared to what's found on something like American Idiot, and it's even thin compared to like Revolution Radio. However, it's got quite a fun bounce to it, as well as being an incredibly catchy song. When I first heard the song, I was like, this is kind of mid. Like, is Green Day ever going to be this, like, really good again? But then it kept like, the American Dream is killing me. Right, it's a really catchy song. I think Dilemma is the best song here. It's pretty similar to Waiting, with its kind of classic 60s, 50s-ish pop melodies. But Waiting is like a top 2 Green Day song for me. It's like pretty much neck and neck with Jesus of Suburbia. So I'm okay with them pursuing that sound for a second time, because it's not a bag they really have gotten into that much. And I really enjoy some of the lyrics. I was sad, but now I'm drunk again is a blunt but hard-hitting reference to a kind of sadness and defeat that can only be driven out by substance. Same goes for the plea, I don't want to be a dead man walking. I think it's one of the more emotional songs on the record. The one that has a lot of kind of life to it, and it's the one that made me feel the most, at least, where a lot of these songs made me feel pretty much nothing. Strange Days Are Here to Say is also a very solid track with a lot of American Idiot vibes and a driving pace to it. But I really hate the line, ever since Bowie died, ever since Bowie died, for the same reason I hate 1981, that kind of, remember this artist? Remember David Bowie? Remember when we were kids? Remember the good old days when David Bowie was making music? Like, I get it, right? There are a million songs like this, and I hate almost all of them. Look to the future to find out a new cool sound, not the past. Or if you look to the past, look for it for its value and its sound and its innovation, its inspiration, not just remember the past? It's a South Park thing with the member berries, right? Going back to, like, The Force Awakens, where they're like, look at a girl from a poor girl from a planet, is from a desert planet, is a Jedi, and look, R2-D2, and look, Han Solo, and look, the Millennium Falcon. Don't you remember 1977? Remember A New Hope? Like, it's kind of the same thing here, where it's like Billy Joe is like, remember David Bowie? Remember the 80s? Like, yes, I remember I don't, I wasn't alive, but I remember that they existed, right? I just lost my sense of humor is a really great line, though, about responding to a tragedy / failing world. It's just kind of a cool way to describe something like that. Father to a Son is just the senior citizen menu version of Wake Me Up When September Ends, but it's still a pretty touching and vulnerable song about his Billy Joe, that is, relationship with his past father, and now how he feels as a father, like looking toward his sons, which one of them are kind of sketchy. Summers, whole thing about that, not getting into that. But it's still a really touching song regardless. And apparently Billy's other son is in a band that's really good. Not Summers, the other band. Don't remember the name of it. Heard it's pretty good, so check it out if you want. And that's about it for songs I like on this record. Like, the final count is 2 I actually like, American Dream and Dilemma, and 2 I think are okay, which is Strange Days and Father to a Son. On a 15-track album, everything besides that just sounds tired and lifeless, or clunky and ill-conceived, but mostly tired and lifeless. It's just an old, tired group of guys cranking out the same stuff they've been doing for 30 years to keep their fans happy after they almost rebelled about their switch in style. I love that the band cares about what we think, because so many bands don't, right? Fall Out Boy, Linkin Park, like, we're gonna switch to this mainstream sound because we want money. Not because we're passionate about it. We don't give a fuck what you think, because we're gonna go get new fans from all this mainstream stuff. And mainstream doesn't necessarily equal bad. Like, I like Mania, but something like I said earlier, One More Light is so tired, and it's obvious they don't care about the sound. They just want money. R.I.P. Chester, of course. I think that was mostly a Mike decision anyway. Like I said, I like that the band cares what we think, and I like the fact that they can still go back to their roots, but not when it's such a detriment to their art and their passion and the fire found within the art. Listening to this record just makes me kind of sad. A band that just doesn't... One of the greatest bands of all time, just not really caring anymore and just being so tired. Saviors is one of Green Day's weakest albums to date. It's not quite at that bottom spot. That pretty handily belongs to Trey. A record would have to have absolutely no redeeming qualities to dethrone Trey as Green Day's worst album, in my opinion. But it's a solid contender for third worst. I think just barely eking out 21st Century Breakdown. Because at least like American Dream on this record is fun, and Dilemmas like warmed my heart a little bit. But still, I give Saviors like a 2+ out of 10. Not a great record, guys. I know you all love it, or at least think it's pretty good. I've seen so many people be like, this is actually pretty good, right, on Twitter. I don't know. As a longtime Green Day fan, and as someone who liked Father of All, that review will come out one day. I just found this one to be tired and sad. What did you think of Saviors? Any thoughts on this review? If you want to see me rank all the Green Day albums from worst to best, leave a like. I pretty much have an idea. I mean, if you didn't figure out what my favorite Green Day album was from this video. And also, I'm really close to being done writing my top 15 albums of 2023, and then I'm going to start working on the worst list. So that's coming soon. So stick around. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.